What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to a new video with me, Adam from Green Auto Services. Today we have a bit of a special video. You can probably tell with this 2009 Ford Fiesta behind me, it's actually on a unique generic plate. Now over here it's called a Rego because we are currently filming from Western Australia here in Perth. Yes, you heard me correctly, we are filming from Australia. Today's agenda is to carry out a generic service on a Ford Fiesta. So, without further ado, we're going to get straight into it and we're going to show you how to do everything. So, stay tuned and let's get straight into it. Okay, so when it comes to your annual service, the very first thing we need to do is change the oil. Now, this is very easy, very straightforward. All you're doing is draining the oil, changing out the oil filter, putting fresh oil in. Easy as that. So the first thing we're going to do, get the vehicle up to temperature. Now this, I have driven this quite a while this morning. It's already up to temperature, so the oil is going to be nice and hot and running a lot more fluidly. So the first thing you just want to do, take off the oil filler cap. It just allows air to go into the engine when it's draining out, so you can get more engine oil out. And if you want to, pop the dipstick up as well. It's the yellow dipstick, which is just down the front of the engine bay. You cannot miss it. So we're going to get the car up in the air, and I'll show you exactly where the oil filter is, how to remove it, how to install the new one, and to drain the oil. So let's do that now. Okay, so we've got the vehicle now up in the air. Now, I'm very privileged enough to have a hoist, but you can do this on the floor. Just make sure you jack the car up at specific points and specifically get axle stands under there. Always got to be safe. So on these Fiestas, the first thing you want to unscrew is the oil filter. Now, underneath the engine, it's actually located at the front here. As you can see, this has a white metal spin-on filter. Some other more modern Fiestas will have the oil filter up towards the back of the engine, but it will look pretty much identical to that. So all we need to do now is just unscrew that off. So lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Okay, so to remove an oil filter, you are going to need a set of oil filter wrenches. Now, this is one of a few designs that you get, but basically you just need something that's going to grab onto that oil filter and just turn it off. Now, it's going to be on there a little bit tight, especially if it hasn't been taken off in a while. So this is exactly how this one works. You just want to slide it over the oil filter, and then as I push the handle, that will actually grip it, and then just start to crack it off. And then once you get it loose enough, do be careful because there will be oil that will spill out of this, which is why we have an oil drainer on the ready, but you just want to get it loose enough to do it by hand. Okay, if you can get off. Here we go. And again, you just want to get something which is going to catch the oil that comes out of it when we take it off. Do be careful because it is going to be hot. Okay, there we are. And that is one old oil filter removed. Alrighty, so being over here in Australia, I am trying to find out all the local suppliers for all local parts. I guess the more the trip goes on, I will inform you accordingly about parts and brands that I use. In this instance, I've picked myself up an AC Delco oil filter. Whatever oil filter you've got, the first thing to do, take it out and make sure it is the same as the one that has come off the vehicle. That is absolutely fine. It's more important to actually look at the thread in the middle to make sure they're the same size and that the seal is also the same size as well. Especially this seal is going to stop the oil leaking from the oil filter housing. So, a lot of them will come with the plastic guards. You want to just take that straight off. And the next thing we need to do is actually just put a little bit of lubrication on the seal so that it doesn't crimp up when we're tightening it back on. So, all you need to do, just get a little bit of engine oil. You can get a little bit of the old stuff that's dripping out. It's just to lubricate it. Or you can get some of the new oil that you've got lined up to put in the engine, and you just want to put a smooth bit of oil just around the seal. Just like that. Then you can screw it back on nice and easy. Okay, so with your new oil filter, just pop it up there and then very gently start it by hand. Make sure you do not cross thread anything at all. Now it's going to start getting a little bit tight. Now the specifications or tightening torques for this oil filter, I believe, is around about 20 to 25 Newton meters. I don't have access to the specific information at the moment, but from my experience, it's around about 20, 25 Newton meters. Now, Unfortunately, because I've got all my tools coming over from the UK, I don't have my torque wrench on me, so this is all going very well, but you can get away with just tightening it up to hands tight. You don't want to go too mad, you just want to nip it up, just like that. It's absolutely fine. And then from here onwards, we're just going to clean it down because no one wants dirty oil all over their engine. Okay, so now that we've done the oil filter, we now need to drain the oil. Now, because we've waited a few minutes, all the oil is going to be sat at the bottom of the engine in the sump. So at the back here, you actually have a 13mm sump plug bolt. So you just want to get a 13mm socket, get it on there. It might be a little bit sticky, and then he says that is a pretty tight bolt. No one wanted that to come off. This is probably why it hasn't been serviced in a while. Oh, there we go. Okay, so once you've cracked it off, then get your drain pan back underneath. And you want to make sure you are ready to catch it. There we go. Okay, so I've now drained the oil for a few minutes now, and as you can see, we have a steady drip. Now, you can wait ages and wait for it to stop dripping, but you will be here for quite a while. For me, that is more than enough. The majority of the oil is now out of there. I'm now going to put the sump plug back in, and if you remember from my other videos, there will be a sump plug washer. It's a rubber washer. Make sure you change that out and put a new one in. So I'm going to get the sump plug, get that back in now. We'll tighten that up. It's around about 15 to 20 newton meters. Again, apologies, I don't have access to the specific information, but I am quite sure it's going to be around about 15 to 20 newton meters. And if you don't have a torque wrench, just nip it up and make sure that that won't come out. Okay, so very importantly, always start it by hand. You do not want to cross thread any of this, otherwise you're going to have a bad day. So once that's done up by hand, we can then just get your ratchet. Okay, so now there, it's just started to grab, and you just want to give it a little tweak. There we go. And that's all you need. Nothing too harsh at all. And then because we're good mechanics, we are now going to clean any excess oil down because we like a nice clean engine. Okay, so we've now got the car back down on the floor. So what we've done so far, we've changed out the oil filter, we've drained the old oil and put the new sump plug in with a fresh washer. Now that we've got the car back down on the floor, we can go ahead and put our dipstick back in. And more importantly, we are going to fill the engine with fresh oil. So without stating the obvious, here is your oil filler cap, which we took off earlier. So that literally just screws in a quarter turn and then pops out. So you just want to turn it to the left and it pops out. Just put it to one side. Now, the supplier has recommended that the oil that goes in this engine is a 5W40. The capacity for a fresh oil refill with a filter, I believe it's around about 4.1, 4.2 litres. For safety, I'm going to just put in 4 litres, run the engine, that'll be sufficient oil enough for it to run, check the level on the dipstick and keep adding accordingly until we're on the maximum level. So, let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so we don't want oil going everywhere. You want to get yourself a nice clean funnel. We don't want any contaminants going into the engine at all. So we'll just pop that straight in the top. Get your new oil, which I should have opened a while ago. And now, like I said, this is a 5 litre tub. I'm just going to initially put in 4 litres. That will be more than enough oil for the engine to be running and to be well lubricated. Take the time. Start off with 4 litres and then we'll top it up as we go. Okay, there we are. So 4 litres has gone in. Make sure you don't spill any excess oil. Put that to one side. And then don't forget your oil filler cap. Pop that on. It'll go down, twist 90 degrees, and you're solid. Okay, so now that we've got oil in the engine, I'm showing you the instrument cluster because I'm going to turn the ignition on and I'm going to get you zoomed in to the oil light. So this oil light here, that comes on every time you just switch the ignition on. When you start the engine, we want that light to go out. Now, initially there will be slight low oil pressure and that light will stay on, but after maybe 1 or 2 seconds of it running, that should go out. If it doesn't go out, turn the engine off and check your oil level, but in this instance, I am pretty sure that's going to go out. So, ignition back off, on. And of course you can't see it because it's right behind the needle there on the gauge, but you can probably just see, if not take my word for it, the oil light has gone out. So you want to wait maybe 5, 10, maybe even 15 seconds for the oil to fill up the oil filter and lubricate the entire engine. Now's probably enough time. We can turn the engine off and get back to the engine bay where we'll check the oil level. Okay, here we are back in the engine bay. So we've run the engine for about 10 to 15 seconds. So now we're going to check the oil level. So again, like earlier, your dipstick is located at the front of the engine here. It's this yellow handle. Just pull that straight up. It'll be nice and easy. Now you want to basically get a clean rag and wipe the end of the dipstick. Now we'll give you a bit of light as well. You can see that on the end of the dipstick we've got a couple of notches, one at the bottom and one at the top. These basically represent your minimum and your maximum levels. So we want ideally the level to be at the maximum mark, but anywhere in between is absolutely fine. So once it's nice and clean, you just want to dip it back in the tube all the way down, come back up and check the level. And actually, if you look at that, that is bang on maximum. We'll just get you focused in there. And if you can just see, it's a bit difficult, but you're going to have to take my word for it, that is literally bang on the maximum mark. So that took only 4 litres exactly, and we are on our maximum level. So as far as an oil change is concerned, if I can get it back in the tube, the oil change is all done. Okay, so that's the oil change done. The next thing that we're going to move on to, which is very important, is the spark plugs. Now, the spark plugs are due roughly anywhere between 40 to 60,000 miles, or kilometres in this case, being here in Australia. I'm going to get you zoomed in on the location of the spark plugs. Basically, we have your electric coil pack down to the right hand side, and this is what effectively feeds the electricity to the spark plugs via these HT leads. So you've got 4 of them, 1 to each plug, which then goes to the top of the spark plugs there. Now these are just all rubber insulated wires. You make sure you want to keep these in order. If you do get them out of order, then you're going to have misfires, you're going to have running issues, you're going to have a problem. So there is a good way of remembering this. You can do the really easy way. You can just mark the top of the ignition coils, because we've got cylinder 1 at the far left, and that runs to the coil in the bottom left, so that's number 1. Number 2 runs to the top right, number 3 top left, number 4 bottom right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But there is a good way. You can just pop these out with a sharp little tug. They will just pop off the spark plugs. The 4th one's a little bit tricky, and then you can actually just pull them straight off. There we go, the top of the coils. And actually, you can keep them all in order and just put them to one side. And there we are. And you have a small little bracket there which actually holds them all in place. So actually, it's very easy to not get them untangled, just like that. So once they're out, they now expose the spark plug bores. So we're now going to get a spark plug socket down in each one and crack each one off and take them out. Okay, so before you actually remove the spark plugs that are in the vehicle, it's always a good idea to get your new ones out ready. You can actually make sure that as long as you've been supplied the correct spark plugs, you know exactly the right spark plug socket that you need to get the old ones out. So this one is a 16mm spark plug socket, which is quite a generic size, and you just literally want to slide it over the new one to make sure that that fits perfectly, which it does. So as long as these have been supplied correctly, you know that is the correct spark plug socket you need. And then a lot of the times you're going to need some sort of extension, and then you just want to drop it down the spark plug bore until it locates. Once it locates, you can then crack it off. Okay, so once we've got the spark plug socket with the extension on, you just want to take your ratchet and you just want to crack it off. So these should only be torqued down to around about 13 to 15 Newton meters. It's not very much at all. So it shouldn't take too much to crack them off. There we go. So take your time. There may be a little bit of resistance there, but just keep going with it and it will eventually come out. Okay, so the other thing with a specific spark plug socket, it might be difficult to see, but the reason why it's a specific socket is that there is actually a small piece of rubber at the bottom of the socket. So this serves quite a major purpose. Because the spark plugs are down a very thin bore, it's very difficult to get your fingers in there to try and grab it to pull it out. So the purpose of the rubber bit in the socket is to actually grip onto the spark plug, so that when you lift it out, it brings the spark plug with it. However, that didn't hold it, so I did have to get a magnet in there just to pick it up from the top to pull it back out. So now that's the first one removed, I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of them, and then we're going to have a quick look at them just to compare to see their condition. Okay, so here are the 4 spark plugs that I've just pulled from the cylinder head. Now, they definitely are old plugs. They're actually genuine Ford plugs that are still in there. Whether or not these are from brand new, I don't know. I would have hoped that they would have been changed out at some point. Now, compared to a new one, there is a minor difference in length. You can probably see there is probably a mil or 2 difference in length, but that shouldn't cause a problem, just as long as the main body thread length is exactly the same, which it is. Okay, so here is one of the old ones that we've removed from the vehicle compared to a new spark plug. Now, I'm only going to show you one of the old ones because actually all 4 of them look exactly the same. Now, comparing it to a brand new one, you can probably see the gap between the top part of the electrode and the inner electrode has quite a substantial gap compared to the new one. Now, it doesn't look like much, but when it comes down to points of millimeters, it can make a big difference, especially when it comes to running. So we're going to get all 4 of these changed out. We're going to put these in individually and start them by hand only. Again, you do not want to cross-thread these because you are potentially going to have a really bad day. So let's get these back into the vehicle right now. Okay, so very importantly, this now comes back to the rubber seal inside the spark plug socket to be at its most useful. Now, these spark plugs are actually very fragile. We don't want to be just dropping them in to the cylinder head to get them started turning in the thread. So actually, you want to make sure that the spark plug goes in and there is a bit of resistance, which actually now it is, and doesn't come out, so that when you turn it upside down, the spark plug doesn't fall out and you can gently lower it into the cylinder head and start turning it in by hand. Okay, there we are. And you'll feel it go into the cylinder head, and you just want to very gently start turning it by hand. You will get a little bit of resistance, but that's fine, and you just want to keep going by hand until it stops. Okay, so right there, it's pretty much stopped now by hand, he says, as he keeps going. There we go, that's not going any far. Now again, you normally would have a torque wrench on you, and the torque settings are, I believe it's around about 14 Newton meters, so you just want to very gently do it up. I've actually still got a few more threads on this. Okay, there we are. So that's just started to bottom out, and then you just want to torque it up. That's it, and that will be more than enough. That is approximately about 14 newton meters. Again, you should be doing this with a torque wrench. It's just I don't have access to this at the moment, so make sure you are tightening it up correctly. You don't want to under tighten it so it's loose, and you certainly do not want to be over tightening it. From my experience, I know that is absolutely fine. So we're now going to go ahead and put the rest in and get it all back together. Okay, so now the spark plugs are in and they are tightened down to the correct specification, we now need to put the HT leads back in and connect it up to the coil pack. So if you remember from earlier, we've got the nice little plastic bracket that's actually held them all in place. So putting it back together is very, very easy and straightforward. And you just want to gently lower them all in to their respective bores. And then what will happen, you'll feel a bit of pressure when it's on top of the spark plug, and you just want to push it down until you hear a click. So I just heard a click, I don't know if you did as well. So we're all going to be quiet and have a little listen. There we go, there's one, well there's two actually. 3, and the last one, 4. Okay, and then when it comes to the coil pack, they're all in the same position, but if you remember, cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, cylinder 4. And again, these are just all push fits as well. And again, you want a little click for each one. Okay, so that is the spark plugs done. So we've done the oil change and we've done the spark plugs. Now the next maintenance item that we're going to address is the air filter. So the air filter, as it says, filters the air that's coming into the engine so no contaminants gets in there. So I'm going to bring you straight down to the front of the engine bay here. This is your air filter housing. So we want to take this off. The first thing you want to do is disconnect your mass airflow sensor. This is a little bit tricky. You've got a red tab at the back here, which I'll just try and show you, which it says pulls straight back. Then once you've pulled that tab back, you can then press down on the locking tab and disconnect. From here onwards, you then need a T30 to take off 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. Okay, so once the 4 have been removed, you then just pull the air filter housing straight up, and there is your air filter. And as you can see, that's pretty heavily contaminated and seen better days. So, let's get it changed out. Okay, so all you need to do is grab your new air filter, make sure it's exactly the same as the one that's come out, and you literally just do the reverse of what you've just done. So take the air filter, it is shaped so it will only go in one way, and you just quite literally put it down into place and then put the filter housing back on top, screw the 4 bolts down, and more importantly, reattach the mass airflow sensor. Okay, so when the 4 bolts have been bolted back down, don't forget your mass airflow sensor. You just want to push the body over. You'll hear a little click and then push the security tab back down, and that is now locked in place. And that is your air filter all done. Okay, so now that we've done the air filter, the spark plugs and the oil filter, the last maintenance item on this vehicle to replace is the cabin or pollen filter, as some people will call it. Now on these Fiestas, they're all located down in the driver's footwell. There is actually a plastic trim that you need to take off, and it is actually hidden at the back there. But I'm going to remove this now so I can give you a good view of exactly where it is and how to change it out. Okay, so I've already gone ahead and removed this side panel. Now, there is only a small plastic screw that holds that into place. You actually unscrew the center, and then as it comes out, you can pop the whole plastic rivet out. Once that's out, you can then go ahead and just pull this trim towards you. It's all held in by a few sprung-loaded metal tangs, and they locate in holes just in the side of the center console there. You'll see when you pop it out, so just pop that to one side, and then this will actually expose right at the back here. This is the housing for your cabin filter. Geez, the light has just gone off there. There we go, we're back in. So that is your cabin filter housing. It's the actual door, if you will, is actually secured in place with one T20 Torx bolt. So once you remove that, we can then take the cover off, and then the cabin filter should be inside just to pull straight out. There we are. The clutch pedal may get in the way there, but that is the T20 Torx bolt that holds it in place, and then just pull it out from the bottom and pop the cover to one side. And just inside here, and I can tell already this has not been changed for a while, that is your cabin filter that you just have to manipulate out of there and out the vehicle. Okay, here we go. So this is actually the side of the cabin filter which filters the air. Now, this is probably one of the filthiest, most contaminated cabin filters I have seen in a very long time. As you can see, it is just caked with dust and debris. But this is why it's here though. This is what filters all of the contaminants and the debris that comes in from outside, and it just builds up, and it's perfect breeding ground for any nasties and bacteria. So this is why it's very important that you have to change this out. So very happy that we've done that. We're just going to pop that to one side and get the new one back in. Right, and there we go. So that is our new cabin filter. As you can see, brand spanking new. So you do have to be careful. If you look on the side of pretty much any cabin filter, there is actually an arrow. Now that is dictating to you which way the filter has to go in. So the arrow dictates the flow of air. So in this case, it comes in from the front of the car, and 9 times out of 10 it goes towards the center console or towards the passengers in the vehicle. So in this case, the arrow wants to be pointing towards the seats. So this way is the way it's going to go back in. So you literally just want to fit this in reverse order of how you took the old one out. So let's do that now. Come on, in you go. See, you don't need to be too forceful. That should just go in nice and easily like that. And then remember, now with the cover, there is actually a locating tab at the top which slots into a recess that stops the top part from coming off, and then as the cover goes back down, you then have the T20 to screw in at the bottom. So what I normally like to do is get the top part in first and slide the cover up. That will locate, and then just push the bottom down. Then you can get your T20 screw and screw that back in. And nothing excessive, just nip it up. It is all just plastic. And then you should feel a bit of resistance. And that's it. And that's your cabin filter installed. All we need to do now is just pop the trim cover back on, put the plastic retaining clip back in there, and we are all done. Okay, and there we are all done for the day. That is how you can carry out all your general maintenance items on your Ford Fiesta. It is definitely something you guys can do from home, do yourself, and save you a lot of cash. Please don't hesitate to drop me a comment for anything, like, and more importantly, subscribe to the channel. Thanks again. We are coming at you all the way down under from Western Australia, and we'll see you guys in the next video.